Hello and welcome to the For Your Ears Only podcast. I'm Jack and this is Derek. You join us today on another special episode of our series where we talk to professionals from the film and TV industry about their career, how they got there and how they started. And today's special guest is Louise Burton, and you'll know her from such major projects as Moonage Daydream, the Kneecap movie and Wuthering Heights. But I'm going to let Louise do more of an introduction for her. So Louise, please tell us more of an in-depth biography, please.
Hi, thank you so much for having me for starters. I'm really excited to be here and to showcase a little bit about sound and what we do in the movies.
Yeah.
So I am primarily a supervising dialogue and ADR editor. I started in the industry back in 2016. I went to the National School of Film and Television. At that time, they only took 8 people every year. And so it was kind of amazing that I was one of the ones that got in. It was a lot for me. I just kind of applied on a whim and thought, oh well, let's see. But I made it in, and I worked my butt off all through that time. I did so many short films and things in my evenings, and then 2 weeks before I graduated, I was sort of messaging around people that had kind of come in and done visiting tutoring and that kind of thing, and so I kept in touch with them. So I messaged around and I'm saying, have you got any work? Have you got any work? And they're like, oh no, we'll keep our ear to the ground. And then one of them came back and said, actually, I might have something for you. So I went and I interviewed, and I found out the day that I graduated that I was going to be the assistant sound editor on Bohemian Rhapsody. Which sounds wild. It sounds wild. And it's a case of right place, right time. But also I cannot tell you how much I worked to get there. So it was amazing. And then from there, I met the wonderful Nina Hartstone, who, if you look her up, she's incredible. She obviously won an Oscar for Bohemian Rhapsody, a BAFTA. She won an Emmy alongside me on Moonage Daydream, and she's just won everything going. And she also comes from good stock because her dad is the amazing Graham Hartstone, who did Eyes Wide Shut and all those kind of things. And all the Bond. He mixed all the Bond films from, the 70s through to the late 90s, early noughties, whichever ones. He's done them all. He's amazing.
Nice.
So that was amazing. And yeah, I just worked my butt off, and I've worked in film, I've worked in TV. As you already said, I've done films like Moonage Daydream, Kneecap. Kneecap's not the only Irish film I've done. I've worked on a film called Colin Cuin. I think I pronounced that right. It's called A Quiet Girl in English. And that went all the way to the Academy Awards for international film. So I've been very lucky.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just a brief overview of me. So
I think that's a lot. It's, as you said, you said you worked really hard, but I think you made it almost like it was luck that you got Bohemian Rhapsody. But as you said, you worked really hard. You put in the hours. You got there in the end. It wasn't just you weren't just plucked off the street and went right. You're
no, and also this is kind of I do a lot of teaching now back at the NFTS where I studied, and I always feel a bit kind of, yes, this amazing thing happened to me, but I always caveat it with the fact that I work really hard, and it's not always been like a straight road to success. It's as with everybody's jobs in these careers, it's up, down, sideways, COVID, all of those things knock you for six. So I always try and caveat it with that. And these jobs are definitely possible for those that work hard enough to want it. So, yeah.
Has film and TV, the sound department, that always been something you wanted to do? That you're only one you wanted to do?
It's a good question. I mean, I didn't really know that this job existed until I went to undergrad. So at undergrad, I did music technology, which is basically the art of learning to record music and, sort of engineering stuff. And I had a lovely time. But one of the modules they had there was a module in sound for film. And I had this wonderful gentleman called Phil Freudenfeld who came in, and he probably won't even remember that I was there, but he came in and he basically did as a lecture on dialogue and Foley and the kind of things that make up a soundtrack. And I went, hang on a minute. What, you mean this is a job? this is really cool and really something that I would be interested in. So when it came to my final year and my final project, I basically took an episode of Broadchurch, took everything out of it, and re-recorded music, re-recorded ADR. I had like my nan recording ADR for this, TV show. It was ridiculous, and I dread to think what it sounds like now. But I put the whole thing together and submitted that as my final kind of project for university. And that was really fun. It was really fun. And then, as always, you kind of come out, I've got a first-class degree, everything's going to be amazing. And it's not. It's really hard. Yeah. I ended up working in a bakery for, 2 years trying to find work in the industry. And I used to volunteer for Panto every year in the sound department. So I learned kind of how to set up mics and how to do live sound, which was sort of adjacent to the film industry, but still sort of trying to keep a toe in. Before then I was like, I need to go and follow my dream, and so I went to the film school, and as I say, the rest is kind of history from there. But yeah, I'd always had a sort of interest in film. I did watch a lot of films as a child, but it never really occurred to me. I used to watch the Roller, and try and see like what the hell is a best boy, what does that do? But it never even crossed my mind that was something that I could ever do. So it wasn't until undergrad, and that's often the problem actually that a lot of us face, is that we don't know these jobs exist, and that's why you don't see all that many women doing it, because nobody knows that we're here.
Behind the scenes, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's kind of why we're doing this series. It's because actors, directors, producers, they always get the interviews, and everybody knows
Graham Norton.
They know what they are, but it's everybody behind it is the more important part as well.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the Foley artist there, which is a nice segue onto the question. So you've done quite a number of roles in the sound department. You've done a Foley artist, music editor, sound editor, dialogue and ADR. Can you explain a bit about each of those roles, and of course, which is your favourite?
Yes. So there's lots of roles in the sound department. The sound department is one of the largest departments in filmmaking. Even though we are primarily an invisible art, like most of us don't know that we exist. They don't know what we do. So to break it down, you have the production sound recordist who captures everything on set, and they have a large team on set, and they're the ones that swing the boom poles, and they're capturing all the performances of the actors on set and everything else. Their primary role is to capture the dialogue and the performances. Then they go into the edit. The editor, as you will know from previous podcasts, they're creating the story, they're creating the shape, they're often doing sound work, and then it comes to us in sound. So you have a dialogue editor / ADR editor, and that person's job is to take the rushes that were recorded on set, look at the choices that the editor has made, and just generally make things better. So you'll know that if you're shooting on the windy moors, there's wind everywhere, and not all of that is desirable for the soundtrack. You want to hear the words clearly. So we'll do like tips and tricks on how to kind of reduce the noise a little bit to make sure that the dialogue can be heard. But also making sure that you can literally understand the words. So we do a lot of shaping of the words to make sure that you're not having to sit there with the remote to like turn it up and down, to make sure that you can understand it. Especially if you've got tricky accents and things, it's very important to do that. And then, like I say, you do what's called ADR, which is where the actors will come back into the studio. So if you've got a piece of dialogue that has been particularly difficult to capture on set, more often than not, the actors will come back in and will redo those lines in a controlled environment, and they have to redeliver their performance. Now, just because they stand at a microphone doesn't mean we don't want them to move and perform and all that kind of stuff. So we get them to try and be really physical while they're doing their performances. And it doesn't have to be like clean. We'd rather have the performance. Also, during the edit, sometimes story will change. So the words that you're hearing in the scene may get rewritten by a director. And so they'll sort of use back of head shots and that kind of thing to then still use the shots, but have different dialogue.
Okay.
So we do a lot of that as well, where they're sort of changing the lines and changing the story to make it easier for the audience to understand. So that is kind of largely the role of dialogue editor / ADR editor. Then you also have the Foley team. So the Foley team is also quite large. You have Foley mixers, you have Foley editors, and you have Foley artists. So the artists are the ones that perform in the booth. So those that don't know what Foley is everything that the actor interacts with. So it's their feet, it's their clothes. If I picked up my phone and put it down on the table, all those kinds of sounds are what the Foley artists record. So they have these little booths and they'll go in, they have all these different surfaces. They'll have wood, they'll have stone, they'll have gravel, they'll have dirt, and they'll re-perform all the feet for every character in the film. And then they'll go through and do a pass of recording all the cloth. So if you've got a leather jacket, they'll like record the creaks of the leather jacket, a denim jacket, and they have different shoes as well. So if you've got a female actor, more often than not, a man will be recording it in high heels. So that's a fun image. So, they do all that kind of stuff. And then they'll go through and do all the, if you've got like coats of armor or mugs, or I don't know, if you're skiing down a slope and you're like rubbing a slice of toast with a knife to make the sound of the snow, the skis in the snow, it's super, super creative, and you have to be quite inventive with a lot of those things. So while it's, while you're just doing feet and cloth, there's loads of other things that you can get involved with, and it's not always what you're hearing as what's recorded. So it might not always be feet, it might be something else. So it's super creative, and they do a wonderful job. And yeah, you'd notice in a film if Foley wasn't there. It would feel weird. So everybody thinks all that stuff is captured on set. It's not. It is, but it's primarily replaced in post-production by the Foley team. So that's that. Then you have sort of sound design and effects departments, and those are the part of the team who are world building. So they'll lay in all the atmospheres, they'll lay in any sort of like crowd, like generic crowd. They'll be doing all the sound effects, the cars, and or other vehicles or creatures or all that kind of stuff. They deal with all of that stuff that creates the world. So if you think of Harry Potter, like the wands and the wizards and all that kind of stuff, they're doing all of that. And then finally, you get to the mix, which is where all of these elements come together, including music, and they balance everything in the film. So they make choices about, are we hearing dialogue? Are we not hearing dialogue? Do we want to hear Foley? Do we not want to hear Foley? Do we want to hear effects? Do we want to hear music? So they're making all those choices at that point. So yeah, that's a whistle-stop tour of the sound department.
There's actually a lot of roles there.
So much. The Foley bit when you described was giving me anxiety, because I was thinking there's so much.
There's so many sounds to capture.
They have props. They have big rooms of props that are just, they have rows and rows and racks and racks and racks of props.
What's your favourite out of everything you described?
I mean, I primarily these days work in dialogue. The beauty about dialogue is that I do a lot of work from home, but then I also do a lot of work in town. So I get this wonderful hybrid of working from home and working in Soho with actors and being social. And, everybody thinks that dialogue is plumbing, and it is. But when you go into ADR and you're working with the actors and you're seeing the actor and the director interact with one another, and you're really trying to draw out performance from an actor, you can't beat that. It's so special, and you're making the film better. And it's not just words that you do either. We do loads of breaths, like breath work, that if you watched a film and they weren't there, it would feel weird, so it's used as a creative tool to kind of push and pull the audience into feeling certain things. So that's where I've ended up, and I love it.
That's good. I'm actually going to skip ahead a few questions because you answered a bit and I didn't want to take your question. Because we're on the subject of ADR, and you mentioned about actors coming into the studio, and the question I have is, in terms of all actors, you said they come in to do some lines. I'm assuming it's not, you need to read all your lines again, unless it's really windy or really loud. But for example, like in Wuthering Heights, end of the movie, no spoiler, but Heathcliff is very, very close, and it's a very kind of emotional performance. And you mentioned the actors have got freedom to move around in the booth. Is that a commonplace thing of, right, that was a really, really good take, it just could sound better, so can you come in, can you try and repeat that performance again in the booth and try and capture? Is that quite a commonplace request?
It's often a negotiation, some of that stuff, because obviously there's lots of emotion that goes on set. There's lots of things that happen. Actually, that last scene is not ADR. That is his performance.
Okay.
And which is beautiful. But there were bits and pieces of ADR through the film because of challenging locations and that kind of thing. But for those emotional scenes, we try our hardest in dialogue to maintain as much of that as possible. And often what we'll do in ADR is, if we do get them to re-record those lines, and it will only be lines, we'll literally just take syllables.
Okay.
It's that detailed. So we'll just take syllables or the front of a word or the end of a word that just gives you enough clarity to understand the line without compromising the performance.
Right.
So, a lot of actors are very talented, and, they're very, very good at recreating these performances. But yeah, we don't get them to do all of it for sure, unless something catastrophic has happened on the set. But I've never experienced that in my life. So, of course, I mean, you get into the world of animation, and that's all, that's all ADR. But I think an actor would literally punch me in the face if I came at them with the whole film and said, "Can you ADR it, please?"
I was very conscious of that when I was watching the movie, because of the ADR, and I didn't know ADR was a thing up until a few years ago when I was looking at the behind the scenes of Lord of the Rings, and every actor to come in and do all their lines again, because they just said, we've filmed over the course of a year, some of it's not great, so you need to come out and do this again. But I see what you mean. It wouldn't be fair to say that was a good performance, do it again in this booth in London. Sometimes it's not going to come out the same.
I mean, they give it their best shot for sure, and actually sometimes you get stuff that's better. And we love it when those days happen, because they can just like muster something, and it's amazing. But it is a big ask for actors to kind of, they're not in the costume, they haven't got the hair and the makeup, and they're not always with their counterparts. When we have particularly emotional scenes, we do try and get the two actors to come into ADR together, so that they can perform against one another, because ultimately that's what we're trying to capture, that's what we're trying to recreate. And it's very hard to get an actor to just do it to a screen of themselves in a room with people that they've never met. And it's challenging, but that's part of the art of everybody in that room trying to recreate something special, and then it's up to me to cut it in and make it work. So like I say, we literally sometimes will just take pieces, literally syllables. If you could see some of the dialogue tracks, it's barcode, you just like, oh, right. What's that,
But in the end, it makes a big difference for what people are going to hear.
I like to think so, but I mean, hopefully the dream is that you don't even notice. Hopefully people don't notice ADR, and that means that it's been done well. So yeah, we are the invisible art, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think
there's no glory for us.
The hardest part must be trying to sync it to the picture. If you're doing lines and somebody's performance is slightly off, you're doing a lot of that editing. That's the hard part, I guess, to make it look as if it's what they're saying at that moment and not months later.
It is, but we, as a tool in the editorial side, I'll make sure that I have the exact audio that matches the picture, and then you can see that, like, I'm quite visual, so you can see the waveform of the original, and then you can see the waveform of the ADR, and you're just lining it up just to make sure that they match, and sort of cutting bits out and splicing it together, and hopefully you can make it smooth. But yeah, like, sync is less of an issue, but you work on that in ADR. We do playbacks in the session, and you can see what's going to work and what's not going to work, and where you've got flexibility. Because we often play the actors the lines, and if they're good, they'll hear it and say it straight back, and it will be the same. So it's like response is how we do it. It's not like they just go in and go, right, there's your mouth moving, please do that.
They
hear it in their headphones and they repeat it back more often than not. Some of them just run up the scene and just do it in one take, and I go,
Pro.
bloody hell. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a lot. ADR's a lot, but it's the best thing when it works and you go, it's like it was always there.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Okay. I'm going to segue into another topic. So you talk about cutting up the audio there. So a film that you were involved in that's basically like a musical collage was Moonage Daydream. That's a movie that I really, really, really adore as a giant David Bowie fan.
Good.
So I've watched that again and again. And you've won a Primetime Emmy and a Golden Reel Award for that movie. You've also worked on Kneecap and Bohemian Rhapsody and I Want to Dance with Somebody, all these musical biopics. So is there a unique challenge with working on a project that's about music and a musician as opposed to something that's not a music biopic, it's a film?
Yeah, I mean, there's an extra layer of complication for sure. So take Bohemian Rhapsody, for example. It comes from the edit, and the edit will be done in such a way that the songs, make sense and everything's cut together. But then it's our job to make that work and to make Freddie's vocal sit inside Rami's mouth. So, like you say, to get it in sync, basically. So that's like a whole challenge in itself because you've only got one take. So for Live Aid, we had one take of Live Aid. So that had to fit. So there's lots of sort of nipping and tucking and using bits of Rami and using bits of Freddie and, to make that work. And it's just the glue that sticks it to the screen. But there's also like a strong collaboration with picture as well, because sometimes you might need the picture to nudge just a frame to get it back in sync, because we're not only syncing to the picture, we'll also have to stay in sync with the music.
Okay.
So because everybody knows the songs. The songs are so well known. So if you start trying to pinch the vocal too much, you're going to hear it. Yeah. So we're quite tied in that regard. So the picture, while picture is normally God, in biopic land, it tends to have to bend to the music. So it's just another layer of complication, all of that stuff.
I never thought that you used Freddie's voice. I thought it was all Rami Malek.
Then it works just right. It's right. It's Freddie.
So
I'm going to tell everyone that. I thought Rami Malek was just like really good at impersonation.
No, he was really good. I mean, you can see. I mean, the fact that you believe it, it's not just us in sound. It's his performance. It's he's giving it 1,010%. All his movements, and he is singing. Mm-hmm. It's just that's not what you're hearing.
He does need to sound like the person he's portraying.
He needs to sing so that you can see his mouth, his neck and everything is so that you believe it. If he was lip syncing, it doesn't look real. Yeah. So it's a real team effort. Of course, the choreography and everything that had to go on as well. Everything has to come together for you to believe that performance, and to believe that is Freddie's vocal coming out of his mouth.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I didn't know that you did that. Sort of blended the two vocals together.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
That's good to know. Well, on the subject of biopics, I know that from chatting outside the interview that you're a fan of live music, like yourself. So this is a kind of off the cuff question. It's not really anything to do with your role, but more of a kind of personal opinion. So, obviously, music biopics, music-centric movies. Is there any artist, past or present, who deserves their own movie about their life story? Who hasn't?
It's Prince.
Prince.
I want Prince.
This man agrees.
I'm also a big Prince fan.
Jack has a lot of Prince things in his house.
Yeah.
It would be so good, right?
Yeah.
It would be so good. I don't know if they're ever going to make it, but if they are, please ring me.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think he'd be amazing. I mean, can you imagine the Super Bowl, Purple Rain, in the rain? Oh, it would be just...
Who would you have play Prince?
Oh, God, I have no idea.
Yeah, that's a big question.
Who would you have play Prince?
I don't... Me?
Yeah, casting call.
Yeah.
Like everything, here comes Pedro Pascal. That's a good answer. I had never thought of that. You never thought of that
I
either.
never thought of that.
I
actually.
always think of like Frank Sinatra, and I think those like
Sinatra would be good. I mean, most like as long as they've got good music, I think most of
Mhm.
them would be really good.
I always think
You-
that it's the mafia that stop Frank Sinatra movies. Are like, there's too much. It's too close to the bone.
grey
We allowed
area.
you to have Goodfellas. No,
Yeah.
Scorsese would have to do the Frank Sinatra
True.
movie, but I think there's too much powers that be.
I think also Purple Rain, the movie, is basically about Prince growing up. He just called his name different. But
Yeah.
you want
The full
his
feature,
full
yeah,
his full life. I know they have that Netflix documentary that they're not releasing. I would actually really like to
They're
see
not
that.
releasing.
Yeah, there's things in it the estate don't want people to know, so
So also the mafia.
probably so it's not coming out. That director should just leak it.
That's a good answer. Now we're getting off topic. Off
Yeah.
topic with Netflix.
Can I go back to Mooney's Daydream? It's not on the sheet, but I'm a big David Bowie fan. So do you have any stories you can tell us from that film?
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, that film was quite unique in the way that we made it. So we were quite a big team again, and of course the images are so abstract,
Yeah.
and David Bowie is so abstract. So traditionally, you'd kind of send people off, and they'd sort of just do the sound, and then that's the sound that goes in the film. You know, it goes through various iterations, but that's how it works. Whereas on this one, there was multiple people working on multiple scenes, and then our supervisor John Warhurst and Nina Hartstone as well, they would kind of filter through and be like, okay, well, I really love that element and I really love that element. Let's try those two things together. And it was a real collaboration in that way, which is quite unique to this film. There's also not loads of dialogue in it, but we had lots of crowd sessions to do because obviously there's so much archive material that's going on in there as well with the screaming fans. But that archive footage of the screaming fans it doesn't sound nice.
Right.
It doesn't sound nice, or the sound doesn't exist at all. So we spent a lot of time re-recording these crowds, and we did big sessions of, much like on Borat, we did big sessions of people singing the songs. So again, we do this like call and response thing, the same on both of these films, call and response. So we'll play a line of whatever song, and then the crowd artists will sing them back. And then we'll play another line of the song, and then the crowd artists will sing it back. And then we use that as the crowd for the film.
Okay.
And we can like multiply it by however many times and make it sound like a stadium full of people. So we did lots of that, but it's very specific and very bespoke because you've got these young screaming fans, which don't, it's very hard to find those in sort of library sounds. We had to go and record those bespoke, and we went to a local school and recorded some drama school students, and it was amazing.
Nice.
And equally, crowds singing Bowie songs or Queen songs or whoever's songs, those also don't exist in libraries. So everything has to be bespoke for the film. So we spent a lot of time doing that. And hopefully it works because you kind of get the energy and the, everything from that. So it was a really amazing and collaborative film. And it wasn't a sort of painting by numbers film. What you're seeing is not necessarily what you're hearing.
Yeah.
And vice versa. The role of picture and sound were very much like equal. Often picture is king, right? But they were so equal in that film, and it was just a lot of fun, really, just to kind of throw mud at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
And see how it makes you feel. And obviously our director Brett was, amazing. So, and he had lots of wonderful ideas and had lived with that film for a really long time. So I'm glad that you enjoy it and have watched it several times.
Yeah.
Have you seen it in
No, that was another question I was going to lead on to because I've seen it a few times and it's not a linear narrative storytelling like biopic. It's a sound collage, really. Okay. It's great. It's really unique and very trippy, very interesting. Yeah. Definitely something you need to see into IMAX. Does that IMAX then change the way that you work?
IMAX doesn't really change the way that we work. Obviously, most films these days are done in Dolby Atmos, and so we have the full, like all the speakers and everything, and we can make things very wide and pan things around when the picture allows it and all that kind of stuff. So the move to IMAX, it doesn't really affect the way that we work, but there are things that happen to it beyond my job that make it so that it can go from one format to another. But it doesn't really change the way that we work, other than the picture is massive and the sound is awesome.
Yeah.
It just like sounds really fat, you know. So it's, if you haven't seen it in IMAX and they're ever screening it again in IMAX, you should definitely seek that out, because it's just epic. It's just epic. We went to the premiere, and that was in IMAX, and we went there, and we made sure we were sat on the back row of the IMAX, because it is so loud. So if you were at the front, I mean,
God help you.
Yeah.
That's actually that's a good link to like another question we've got with that. So obviously we went from IMAX to movie and TV. You've worked on TV shows, you've worked on films. What's the difference between both of these mediums for yourself? What would be the main takeaways?
I mean, budget usually. No. No. So on films, I mean, we usually on a film, like for example, Wuthering Heights, we were on that film for about 9 months. The same with Bohemian Rhapsody. It's about 9 months on that kind of film. So we get a lot of time. It never feels like a lot of time, because they're constantly recutting the picture. So we come on before they've locked the picture. So for every few weeks, they'll turn over a new version of the picture. So whatever edit we've done, we have to recut it up to the new version of the picture. So everything has to be recut up. You know, they'll do previews and like test screenings for audiences, but they'll want sound doing ahead of that. So we'll go into what's called a temp mix and pull everything together and kind of do a real rough and ready version, so that it at least plays properly in a cinema and it's not going to, you know, bump audiences in and out. We'll then come back, they'll recut the picture some more, and then we'll keep working. We'll shoot ADR during that time. We'll shoot Foley during that time. Then they'll still keep cutting the picture, and then we'll recut. And then finally we get to the final mix. Sometimes they'll still cut the picture, sometimes they won't. And then the film is finished. Whereas on TV, the schedules are much shorter. So you'll be lucky if you get 2 weeks to cut a TV show. But the bonus is that usually those episodes are locked. So you'll kind of do your dialogue and Foley and everything, and it will remain a locked picture, and it will go to mix, and then it'll go on. But the thing with telly is you can often be on them for a long time, because if you've got multiple episodes, they run back to back. So you can still be on a TV show for sort of 3, 4, 5, 6 months, just with multiple episodes back to back. So yeah, it's usually just schedules. But in terms of the actual work that we do, there's not a real difference. It's just we get a bit more time on the same material on film. It's just they're changing the order of things all the time.
Okay.
All the time.
That's good. Because that sounds maddening to go, here's your thing, we've changed that again. Okay, but here's a new one, we've changed that again. Like, it's
part of the process. Scenes go in, scenes come out, scenes get longer, scenes get shorter. You know, they're still finding the film, and you know, it's usually all to the better of the film.
Yeah.
So we try not to mind too much, but it is often a lot to keep up with. And when we don't have assistants and things, depending on the budgets of films, it's often a challenge to make sure that we're keeping up with everything. Sadly, the role of assistant is slightly eroding at the moment with budget squeezes and all that kind of stuff. And it's one of the most important jobs in the sound team, because they keep the wheels on everything. So if anyone's listening, please don't get rid of our assistants. We need them.
Yeah. So part of the job is to drive the audience to feel. It's about emotions, especially sound pictured together is what creates the emotion. So is there much creative control you have in your job?
I mean, yeah, sound can, if you've ever watched a film mute, I dare you to watch a film mute, because it will not be the same. It's like horror, right? If you watch a horror film with no sound, it is not scary.
It's the only time I can watch a horror film with no sound.
Me too, but it's not scary. So, sound does a lot of heavy lifting depending on the film. Well, actually, it does a lot of heavy lifting all the time, but for certain films, you can really feel it. But I'd say we definitely have lots of creative control. It's all a collaboration with your directors and producers and things about the intention behind certain things. So what you're hearing at any given moment and what effect that's going to have on the audience. So kind of, as I said earlier, do we hear breath or do we not hear breath? What does that tell us? Does it make us lean in or does it make us pull away? And sound is the thing that drives that, because the image can't always do that. So I mean, even in Wuthering Heights, like the scene in the barn where you've got them going at it downstairs and you've got Margot and Jacob upstairs. It's like, what are we hearing at any given moment, and what is that making us feel? What are we, what are we getting in that moment, and do we understand what's happening? And if we shifted the balance, what does that do to an audience? So we played around with that kind of stuff a lot. Yeah, we have a lot of control. And again, ADR, re-recording lines, even turning lines up and down can change the intention of what you're hearing. So there's so much, like, like I say, people joke that dialogue and those kinds of things are plumbing, but they're not. They're the performances of the actor, and that's what drives the narrative.
It makes a difference if it's not there.
Absolutely. Like I say, you just have to watch anything, and if you really study it, you'll see. But also sound can help a lot with the edit as well. So in transitions and things, like you've only got to think of like Apocalypse Now and whatever, and some of the transitions and things that go on there are driving the narrative forwards, but also helping the edit. Not that the edit always needs help, but sometimes it can keep the momentum moving in things. So yeah, we have a lot of control. A lot of directors have a very clear vision, but there's always things that we can do to help and sort of, because that's what we do. We're the experts in our craft. So
yeah, it's quite funny you mentioned Wuthering Heights, because we were talking just before the camera about the opening like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
we were, and I was the only male in the cinema with my wife, and the opening 10 seconds come up, and it's a really, and it's unsettling is the first thing, but because there's nothing on the screen and it's just the sound, and I'm like, what? I was like, are we in the wrong film? What is going on here? And then it opens up, I'm like, yeah, and I'm like, what's that? And it is almost like a horror, and it's meant to like shock and grotesque. But just when you mentioned that, I was like, that was quite funny, because not many movies open on black and just this sound that could be anything at all, and it's the last thing you think it is. And I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. This is it's that kind of movie we're going in for.
Yeah.
But no, just when you mentioned it there, I can see how sound sets you up for this is a pretty brutal world, and here's the start of it. So it was good for that.
And it helps with the language of the film as well. You kind of, you'll know what film you're in within the first 20 minutes because of the sound. It can drive a lot of that. And like you say, Emerald she had a very clear vision of what that was supposed to be, and it sounds like it worked. So
yeah, because I had no idea about the story. I know there's been multiple iterations of the movie, but I had no idea. So I was in the first 10 seconds, I was like, what is this? But I really
Saltburn, right?
Yes. So yeah, it's the same thing where sound is a key taker, especially in Saltburn. It's like, everyone's going to talk about particular scenes, and the sound does make, and that's the thing to take away, and that's the kind of impact of it, which is a very good segue on our next question. Again, personal opinion, or personal and professional opinion, what do you think separates good sound from great sound within TV and film? And feel free to share any examples.
I mean, I've kind of sort of already answered this, but the thing that separates good sound from great sound is when you don't notice it. As soon as you notice sound, it is not doing its job. Like, we're supposed to be invisible, which is really hard for us because we love our jobs and we want everyone to tell us that we're really good. But as soon as you can hear, ADR, you're bumped out. As soon as the Foley is too present or feels like it's not sticking to the picture, that's also going to bump you out. As soon as a sound effect is too loud or you don't believe that it's sticking to the picture, it's going to bump you out. If the music is too loud or you're really enjoying the music, but consciously enjoying the music, then that's also going to bump you out. So I don't know. It's so hard, but I think as soon as you become aware of sound as a kind of general viewer, those of us that are in it, we can see and hear things all the time. But for your average viewer, as soon as you're aware of the sound, game over. You're not in the story anymore. I don't know if there's any real examples particularly, but I mean, you just got to look at the likes of Walter Murch and all that kind of stuff. Like I say, Apocalypse Now, I mean, that's a damn great film. It's a great sounding film, and sound's doing a lot of work in that, again, to drive narrative and be creative. But yeah, I think as soon as you really become aware of it as a viewer, it's no longer working.
I think it's kind of the opposite, you would think, because with sound, you would always think louder. You want everyone to hear everything, but again, as you said with a lot of your answers, it's less is more. A lot of these things, and it's finding that balance.
It depends on the film, obviously, but yeah, I think as soon as you become aware of something, you think, oh, that was a really cool sound effect. You're no longer in the story. So, as long as the sound is serving the story, you're fine. But as soon as you're like, that's really cool, you're not in the story. You're not thinking about the drama anymore. You're thinking about the sound. And so, I don't know. It's a really fine balance. That's my view on it anyway. I'm sure there are others who would disagree, but that's what I think.
No,
I think something that's unique that you're looking out for is maybe like in a Spielberg film, you're looking out for that Wilhelm scream. It has to happen. Yeah. You're always looking out for that. Yeah.
Why is that always there?
Why not? Why not?
Is it like a hat tip to? Let's just put it in.
I think so.
Because surely there'd be better, more modern performances you could put in there, but everybody always goes back to that sound.
But it's because it's the nostalgia, right? And it's like no one will be able to recreate that. It won't have the same essence. So yeah, I'm sure people could try, but it wouldn't work.
Very good.
Can you go into the cinema as just an audience member and watch a film, or are you always on thinking about choices made and that kind of thing professionally?
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard. I often say that if I stop thinking about the filmmaking after the first 20 minutes, it's a good film. Mm-hmm. If it takes me longer than 20 minutes or I don't stop thinking about it at all, it's probably not been a great success. It's so hard to switch off, and I look at things and I'm aware of things, and like my mum and dad's telly at home is out of sync and I can't watch it because it's not and it drives me mad. And I get, because of the nature of my job with ADR, I'm constantly looking out for sync, and I can see, within quarter of a frame if something's out of sync, because my eyes and ears have been trained to notice that stuff. So as soon as you go to a cinema and there's a piece of ADR that's not in sync, I'm like, make it stop, make it stop. So, and that throws me out the film. But normally within the first 20 minutes, as long as I've stopped thinking about it, it's generally a good film. But it is hard, and we watch so many films. I'm really lucky to be a member of BAFTA now, which I was super proud to be able to get in there. But obviously through awards season, I watch so many films, and yeah, that's generally the bar that I kind of have set for whether something is good or okay.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Do you have any advice for someone who wants to get into this?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like what we've been talking about, really. I think, watching films is the best education you can give yourself, and sort of pulling them apart and dissecting them and seeing what you like about it, what you don't like about it, not just about sound, but all of it, really dissecting what it is that you like about stuff. The other biggest education you can give yourself is to go and make short films, or go and find filmmakers who are making short films. It's not always the easiest thing to do, but if you can just go out and kind of learn what all the different roles are and understand other departments and then understand your own craft, that's really going to help you. And you end up doing a lot of problem solving that then enhances your learning. So definitely that is very good. I mean, and just being keen also, and asking questions to when you get the opportunity to speak to people who do these jobs, being really keen. And I always say a smile goes a really long way. So if you're ever going for, whether it's a runner job or a trainee job or an assistant job or whatever, it's not necessarily what you know. They always say what you know, who you know, not what you know. But actually, it's not about what you know. What you know can be taught, but you just need to learn how to tell stories and ask the right questions and just be really keen and attentive, because that's the best way. That's the best way to learn. And never ever feel insecure that you don't know something, because I don't know everything. I learn every day in my job, all the time. So, and there's plenty of things I don't know and I don't need to know, but plenty of things I don't know. And it's really easy to carry around insecurities about that stuff, especially as someone who's trying to come in. But don't worry about it. As long as you feel like you can tell a story, you'll be just fine. So, yeah,
that's a confident answer. I think it's quite good, especially someone who'd be looking to get in here is probably thinking technical side of things. I need to go and learn about all the software used and all them kind of mics used and such. And as you said, that comes with the job. But if you're a good storyteller, listener, eager.
Absolutely. The tech can be taught, and of course it's important. I can't do my job without the tech, but if I need to do something for storytelling purposes that I don't know how to do, then I'll go and figure out how to do it. Then that's when I'll go and teach myself how to do something. But I'm only doing it because it's driving the story and driving the narrative. Obviously, we use Pro Tools in the industry. If you can go and learn a little bit about Pro Tools, maybe, they have free versions of Pro Tools, go and experiment, go and record some things, do podcasting, do films, do whatever, like just go and mess around with the software. That will set you in pretty good stead. And, like I say, everything else can be learned, but you just have to try and understand what it is to tell stories and the impact that the decisions that you make have. And that can't be taught. That's really hard to teach. So, the more you can educate yourself in that kind of thing and be aware of why you're seeing something, why something's that color, why you're hearing a certain sound, why has the picture suddenly gone black and white, all those things, it's all for a reason. It's all making the audience feel something. And if you can tap into that and start questioning why, rambly answer. Sorry.
No, that was a really good answer. I think as well it's quite transferable because obviously you're in sound, but I think as you mentioned, you didn't really know what you wanted to do, and you learned about this hidden world, and I suppose you throw yourself out there, and someone's maybe got an idea of I want to work in sound, but then they see prop department or such, goes, oh, that looks quite interesting over there, and they go into something else. So no. You say a rambling answer. No, I disagree. I think that was a very good answer.
I get so many young people, as most of us in the industry do, like trying to figure out how to get in. But like I say, it's just the insecurity of all of it, and just try not to carry too much of that around with you, because honestly, it's just a waste of energy. You'll be fine.
In terms of the industry, is there any projects you've got coming up that you can tell us about?
I mean, let's see. Well, I've just finished up on a film directed by the wonderful Sir Idris Elba.
Okay.
Don't know when it's coming out. Not sure that we have a title yet, but coming soon, I guess. But that was a lovely experience. He's making his transition from actor to director.
This is his first directorial role?
I think it's his first feature film.
Okay.
I think he's probably directed some TV before, but yeah, he's trying to branch out and maybe step into more of a directorial role. So it was really wonderful to work with him, and he's exactly as you'd expect him to be. Just really
terrifying.
No, he's wonderful, really wonderful. So yeah, that's TBC. But yeah, we'll see what the rest of the year holds for sure.
So
Sorry.
We've got a final question for you, Louise. Is there anybody that you work alongside or you think would enjoy coming on the podcast and talking about their role in TV and film?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm going to keep it in the sound family, but on films such as Saltburn, Wuthering Heights, we worked with the wonderful sound recordist Nina Rice, and so she is in charge of all the recording of all the sound on set, and she's worked on things like Barbie as well. She's really, really cool, and I think she'd be wonderful for you guys to talk to.
Good, thank you for sharing. We will reach out to Nina.
Wonderful Nina Rice.
I've actually got a bonus question. Jack doesn't even know this question. People know us from being like a James Bond podcast, and one of the times we spoke when you were talking about live music, you went to see Ray. This sounds like a bit of a loaded question. In your professional and personal opinion, next James Bond movie coming through, who do you think should do the theme?
We should have Ray, absolutely.
Yeah, I said that because I think Ray,
knew that
but
was going to be the answer.
Are you going to say Ray?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a powerhouse. So her tour, if anyone is out there to see it, I'm not being paid for this advertisement at all, but she's amazing, and it's a real theatrical performance. She goes from like opera to dance to jazz. The whole thing is like an opera, like a movie. And she's just really cool, and her voice is amazing, and I think she'd be great.
Yeah, she is like a real musician who knows technically everything to do with music.
Oh, she
But
does
she's
actually, because
also-
I've watched the clip of her talking about all the harmonies. I was like, I could sit and listen to that for
Yeah.
like 10 hours.
Yeah.
But she's such a grafter, you can see
Yes.
in the making. And she's also, again, if you've listened to the album, the very last track, I know everyone's whinging about it, but she literally lists off the credits of everybody who helped make that record. I mean, how cool is that to actually be aware of those that have helped her make something? So I just have a lot of respect for her. I think she's really cool. And maybe one day I'll get to work on a Bond film. Oh, one day.
That would be good.
My dad would die.
Or Ray's biopic.
Or Ray's biopic, exactly. Yeah, give it 20 years and maybe I'll be there. So yeah,
That's
no,
very good.
she's really
Thank you for answering that wee bonus question I threw in there. And thank you for actually answering our questions. We are all out
Really
of cues. Unless you've got any bonus questions.
No, that was a good question.
Like you had another like David Bowie or another Prince question.
I've got
maybe now
hundreds
if
of
you guys
questions.
weren't actively aware of sound, maybe now you can go and watch some movies that you love and think about the sound.
Mhm,
I think
definitely.
that is the Foley side of things. The fact that it's all replaced is so weird to me.
I think the Foley artist sounds like a really fun job.
Is it fun?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, just
It's
breaking
a lot of
things.
hard work, but it's fun.
Is there a lot of I don't know, we're just kind of going off the cuff now, but in terms of the Foley artist, is there? You mentioned examples of feet moving. In my head, I've also got like spreading butter on toast.
Yeah.
Is there anything where there's a sound and it's been, we have no idea what that's going to be, but let's just try a bunch of things and see what happens? Or is everything is all sounds kind of accounted for at this stage?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Let me try and put it in a different way. So, like for footsteps, for example, footsteps on like snow, there will be. You'll be like, right, footsteps on snow. That's what we need. Or, you mentioned a leather jacket. Is there anything that, when you were a Foley artist, came up where you were like, I don't really, how are we going to make that sound that way? Maybe we need to try a bunch of different things to make it like a really unique story. Maybe I'm not asking this question at all.
No. It's I understand now. So, often with sound, it's not just like the sound that you record isn't necessarily always the sound that you hear, and it's often layers and layers of sound that make the sound.
Okay.
And so, for example, snow. Like we obviously don't have snow in the theaters, right? In the stages, so you have to be really creative. So whether it's like crispy leaves or something that are like EQ'd in a certain way to make them sound like snow, or again, like one of the ones that I've heard from a Foley artist friend of mine is they had to do the skis on the snow, but of course you can't go out and record. Well, you could, but you haven't got easy access to skis on a snow slope. So they, like I said, they get the knife with the burnt toast and they literally rub the knife down the burnt toast to make the sound of the skis. And so often, even though what you're seeing is skis on snow, it's actually knife on toast.
And you would never know.
You'd never know.
You'd never know. And so there's so many things like that where they have to get really, really creative, and they've got all these sort of tips and tricks as to how to get certain sounds. And once you've done it a few times, you kind of you have an instinct of what works. But again, even the leather jackets, like sometimes you'll get the exact jacket that's in the film, but it won't sound like how you want it to sound for the story. So you might need like a thicker leather that's gonna make a slightly deeper sound that tells us something about your character. Or maybe in the shot they're wearing, I don't know, dress shoes or whatever, but then we get like a big boot and record a big boot because their character is intimidating. So the weight of the shoe is going to tell you a lot about the character. So it's not necessarily record what you see, you have to get creative. I mean, like the Foley on Saltburn, let's just
What was that?
Into the grave.
Just think, watermelons and chocolate cake and all those kinds of things.
I'm assuming Barry didn't have to come into the studio to do that.
Barry did not have to come in and do Foley. No, we had a wonderful Foley. He did everything for us. But no. But he did come in and do lots of breathing for me, so that was good.
Well, that's a good bit to end there.
Yeah.
I will keep asking questions, so I'm going to stop asking questions at this point. But yeah, it's as I said before, I rambled on with more questions. So thank you very much for taking the time to go through these questions with us today. This was really good. This was very educational.
Yes,
I've learned
it
a lot.
was.
I've got a new appreciation for sound, which is exactly what you were hoping to achieve.
That's exactly what I wanted to achieve. The invisible art. We're here. We're doing things, and yeah, it's good.
Well, again, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm going to say we'll see you next time. We won't see you next time, but I'm going to talk to the audience now. We'll see you next time. But yes,
Me.
you're welcome. Thank you, Louise. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.